Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you so much for listening. I apologize. I've been away for about a month now. Not a lot has happened in the Piston world, but I've been through some things, and we're going to talk about that maybe a little bit later. But we got Media Day coming on Monday at 12:30, and so we're going to break down that. I'm going to come back on the air Monday after Media Day and see if there's anything of significance that's said. But today, we are going to talk about my hot takes on what I think might come out of training camp. And one of them is going to be about Asar Thompson, what I think he's going to do at training camp. Talk about Duren. You know, there's a lot of controversy. Duren is really, a lot of Piston fans are down on Duren. And we're going to discuss that. Is Cade Cunningham an all-star? That's always debated. And where does he rank? And what is that going to take? But one of my big hot takes is the Fontecchio factor. What role is Simone Fontecchio going to have in our season? And B-Ball Paul. I think there's some exciting times ahead for B-Ball Paul. He's Paul Reed. The Pistons signed him. He was a backup for the 76ers, but he played in 82 games for them last year. And he's an exciting player. But the big topic we're going to really dig into today is Jaden Ivey. So much discussion about, is Ivey going to start? Is Ivey not going to start? Who's going to be the starting two guard? But we're going to talk about what has been said by JB Bickerstaff. You know, he's the coach. He's the one that's going to decide this, and we're going to see what he said. And so everybody seems like they're ignoring what JB said. And even, you know, Trajan Langdon, he, by his actions, has said some things about Jaden Ivey, I think. So we're going to get started here, and we still don't have a backup point guard. We just have Cade and Ivey and then maybe Asar, but there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen. Markelle Fultz is still out there, and we could have signed Tyus Jones. He signed for the minimum with the Suns, but we don't know what might have happened there. But anyway, let's start out with something fun. Asar Thompson. So what I think is going to happen, my hot take is Asar is going to come into training camp, and he's just going to tear it up. And he is just going to be one of the best players on the floor, and he's just going to do his thing. And he is such a good all-around player, you know. And I'm not sure about how he's going to play into winning, especially if he's not on the court with a good balanced lineup with some shooters. But he just does so many incredible things, and I just think he's going to blow even the coaching staff away, even though they watched him on film. And when he gets out there with the other 14 guys or whoever's in training camp, he is just going to stand out and look like one of the best players out there next to Cade, I think. Now, I'm not going to lie, I didn't want to draft Asar because he couldn't shoot a lick, and so he still can't shoot a lick. We're hoping that Fred Vinson gets a hold of him, and I know that Trajan said that he's been with him every day. That was even way back in the summer, working on his shot. So we hope that improves. But it's just undeniable the things that he can do at the defensive end and rebounding and just so many things. He's so gifted. And I think his ball handling will improve. And I think that he has shown flashes of being a great passer. I love his pull-up jumper, man. When he gets the ball in the lane, he can just elevate, and he fades away, and he rises up way over everybody, hangs in the air, and he just sticks it in the basket. So we'll hope that maybe we see some more of that. But I just think that he's going to come out and dominate in the summer scrimmages. And so I think that's going to kind of force the coach's hand somewhat. I don't know. My bottom line is whether he starts or doesn't start, and I'm not sure that I have him in my starting lineup right now, even though he's my second favorite player to watch. But I just say he's got to play 30 minutes. However you want to work at JB Bickerstaff, that dude's got to play 30 minutes because he just can do so many things better than most anybody in the NBA. So another thing we're going to talk about is Cade. You know, there's always discussion about Cade, and there was a rating release rate where they ranked the players in the league, and Cade was 34. Well, I'm going to tell you something. When you start counting players, 34 is a really high number, because there are so many good players. You know, you think 34, that sounds, oh man, that's way down there. But there are so many great players, I'm sure, that were ranked after him. It just gets real hard. There's just so many good players. So, but here's the bottom line that's so frustrating always is that, is Cade good enough to be an all-star? And we all know that, last year he averaged like 22, 23 points a game and 7 assists and a bunch of rebounds. But he He can't get considered for anything. He couldn't get considered for Rookie of the Year because the Pistons were bad. He can't get considered for All-Star because the Pistons are bad. Well, there's just one player that doesn't matter. Victor Wembanyama. Their team was terrible last year. They were only about 3 games worse than the Pistons until like the last 11 games. Then they won. I don't know if they won 6 or 7 of the last 11, so their record was better. But they were losing, and still everybody disliked Victor. And I'm just going to tell you, Victor is. If he stays healthy, like so many other people, this isn't a hot take. He will be the greatest player in basketball history because of his impact at the defensive end, plus what he can do on offense. But, I mean, when it comes to Cade, it's all about wins and losses. Everybody knows that, Banchero and Cade's statistics were identical, except Cade had a lot more assists. But Banchero's team won the Magic won a lot more games than the Pistons did, so therefore he gets to be an All-Star because they won. We know that they put a lot of priority on winning and losing. So there's just too many good players, and so what's going to have to happen? And I think the Pistons' initial schedule is very, very tough. So I think that they're going to struggle a little bit at first, but they need to catch fire and wins a bunch of games prior to the All-Star game, and so the Cade can get picked to go to the All-Star game. So I think the talent's here. There's only about 5 or 6 players last year that averaged 22 and 7, and he's one of them. And I think he's going to be way better this year. And everybody knows that the more shooting should really help him. And we'll just have to wait and see. But I think it's undeniable what he's a great player. Jack Kelly, you need to follow Jack Kelly on Twitter. He posted these Cade shooting jumpers and a bunch of tough ones, some 3-pointers, and it just got me excited for the season, got me excited to watch Cade play, and it's going to be fun. So, but Duren has been a lot of controversy, a lot of talk about Jalen Duren, and because he's not a good defender, and we need a good defender. But here's the thing, Piston fans, there are no centers available. New York Knicks, they're going for it, man. They want to win the title, and they have a great, great team. They don't have, Mitchell Robinson got hurt already, so now he's out, and they didn't have a backup. So they're desperate to get a center. They got Precious Achiuwa, but and the Pelicans, they don't have a center. So there's teams, in the past, everybody could pick up a center. There were just all these centers floating around there. You could even get them for the minimum that were athletic. But for whatever reason, there's now no centers available. So there's all these teams that need one. So, but Duren, in spite of his flaws defensively, which certainly are, he does not protect the rim, and we're hoping JB can get that straightened out. But he shot 62%, got 14 rebounds a game, averaged 12 points a game. He averaged 14 points and got about 12 rebounds a game, which he was almost spot on from what I predicted before the season started. Got myself on the back, but I was right about that one. But those are phenomenal stats. Not many centers can do that, and 79% on free throws, and there's even way fewer centers that can do that. And he just showed great improvement. But that does show that free throw improvement shows that he's 20 years old, and so to give up on him or whatever, we just need to go all in, and we got to hope that he gets coached up and that he reacts, because he never challenged shots at the rim. I mean, Wiseman did a better job challenging shots at the end of the year at the rim. You just don't even hardly see Duren there when somebody tries to go to a shot where he tries to at least contest it and challenge it, so that people just don't drive on the Pistons. So we will see what happens there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pistons could swing a trade for even. I love Paul Reed, and you're going to find that out. I think you're going to love Paul Reed too. So, but we could trade Paul Reed or Stu, and because to the Knicks or the Pelicans, because they're so desperate for a center. A lot of people think they will wait until we get into the season further, and before those teams try to make a trade. But I think it's very likely they might need a center. Here's another problem: is everybody needs 3 centers. Obviously, you need a backup center because nobody can play 48 minutes. Although Wilt Chamberlain averaged over 48 minutes for his career because he played in every minute of every overtime game. But they need backups. But the problem is also centers, and I don't have statistics to prove this, but I got to believe that the center position is the most injured position in the NBA. That just seems like what I've seen. So you really need three, and so we have three, but we're not going to win the championship this year. So we might be able to make a trade and hopefully get something of value if we did. But in the meantime, I just again want to just reiterate about Paul Reed. So B-ball Paul, I think he's going to come into training camp and he's going to ball out, and the coaching staff is going to fall in love, and his enthusiasm and his energy and his toughness and the fact that he can block shots. He's the only guy on our team that has really been shown to be a significant shot blocker. And so we need that. And so it'll be fascinating. A lot of people have him, wrote in as our third string center. And it's just going to be fascinating to see how that all plays out, because I just think that, again, like Asar is going to blow people away. I think that Paul Reed is going to blow people away, and so I think they're going to force themselves into it. But here's my thing: all the players that are talked about the eighth most talked about player on the Pistons, from what I've listened to, and I listen to a lot of Piston podcasts and I listen to national podcasts, is the player least talked about that I think is going to have the biggest impact on our team is Simone Fontecchio. He only played 16 games for us last year, but we were exponentially better when he was on the court. And so I think that that's going to happen again. And I think I would not be shocked if he have a bigger impact than Tobias. And I think Tobias Harris is a great player. I think he's really good. I think his problems in Philadelphia were he didn't have a good playoff run, but he got a huge contract. Philadelphia kept him. They got rid of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler went on to be really good. And, Tobias, in this past year, he was really disappointing in the playoffs, but he's been just this rock solid player. He is a true veteran, but I just think Fontecchio has a little more juice to his game. He can attack the rim really well. I think he's probably going to be a little bit better defender. I think we're going to want him on the court all the time. And I did talk about this. I think Harris and Fontecchio are both really good. I'm going to talk more about staggering as the year goes on. I think that JB is going to stagger people, and I think that we want always to have Harris or Fontecchio, one of those two on the court at all times. So it can be done. So we'll see what happens there. And so I'm really excited about Fontecchio. I would start him, and but that makes it hard because a lot of people talk about their starting lineups. And again, I told you my second best player is Asar, so if Asar is going to start, that would mean maybe Fontecchio won't start, because I think that they're always going to give the Harris, they're going to give Tobias the edge over Fontecchio because he's a veteran. Real quick again, what the off season was not what I thought it was or hoped it would be. We didn't make, and you can't control the moves. I've talked about this before. You can't make people make trades with you. It takes two teams, and you can't get players to sign for you. Who knows? We gave Beasley $6 million, and Gary Trent Jr. got $2 million. And Gary Trent, I think, is a better player, but would he have not have signed with us? Trent signed way later when there was nobody left. I think that was willing to sign him, but I think he's a really good player, and he signed for the minimum. But who knows? Did Gary Trent Jr. say, I don't want to play on a losing team in Detroit, and I'd rather take my chances and play for low dollars this year with the Bucks and see if we win and increase my value? But it's all fascinating. We just don't know. I wish I knew what went on behind the scenes. I wish I knew what offers were made or not made, and for trades and everything else. So, but we will see what happens. So, here's the thing we're going to talk about. All these people, lots of people have weighed in on who's the starting lineup, and probably the biggest position that people debate is the shooting guard position. So a lot of people think that it might be Asar, might be Beasley, and it might be Ivey. So those are the three names that are thrown out there. But what does JB say? What do we find out from Trajan? So number one, Trajan has not traded for a third string point guard. I mean, that means that they're obviously planning on using Ivey as the point guard. Here's another thing I just want to throw out there real quick. Last year, when Cade wasn't on the court and they did stagger and played Ivey just a little bit without Cade, Sasser was on the court, but I couldn't figure it out. Sasser always had the ball in his hands, and Ivey didn't get to play point when Cade was off the court, which I always wanted him to do. I wanted them to be staggered the whole year. I said it repeatedly. But anyway, by his actions, Trajan's kind of told us what, that he's planning on forcing it. We have to play Ivey. My concern is, though, again, like I said, with the center position, you need 3 centers at least, because one of them almost is always hurt. Well, with point guards, if Cade gets hurt or Ivey gets hurt or Ivey doesn't work out that well at point guard, then we don't have anybody unless, obviously Sasser, but we'll see what happens. But I still, I like Fultz. He's not a good shooter, but he's a tough, really good player. And maybe his agent doesn't want him to sign with us. And maybe we've tried to get him, but who knows? But the biggest thing that we're going to talk about today is what JB Bickerstaff said. So this is what blows me away. All these people are speculating on who's going to start at the 2 guard, but didn't they listen to what JB had to say? So JB's talking about the rules are set up for speed, and guys don't want to foul, and Ivey's a blur. They can't stop him. And so he's a valuable asset. He's going to be tough to guard, and he's, praising him. He's also talked about having Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, and what he learned from that, and ways to use those 2 guys together, just like ways to use Cade and Ivey together. That's what he's referencing. So he said they're going to have the opportunity to get to play together. They're going to be able to. He mentioned they could start together and finish the games together, but still stagger them. But he said we always want to try to keep one of them on the floor. So that's what he said. That's out of the coach's mouth. He's the one that decides who goes in the games. So he said we allowed to start and close games together, but we always wanted to have one dynamic player on the court. So here's the thing: who else on our team can create a mismatch? Who else can force the offense and create offense just on their own? And it's basically really only Cade and Ivey. They're really like the only 2 on the roster, and I still do think that Asar is going to be able to do that someday. We'll see what happens this year, see how much his handle's better and his passing's better, but I think he has the talent to do that. But anyway, JB said, I'm going to be taking notes. I'm going to get those 2 guys together, and before I declare anything to the media about what we're going to do, how we're going to use them, I'm going to figure things out. And I don't think that Monty ever tried to do that, but he said just the fact that he believes in his talent. He believes in Ivey's talent and his skill set and in Cade, and that there's plenty of ways to get opponents to mismatches, that he just thinks that they're really gifted. So one of the things he also talked about is that, he believes in Ivey, and that, that wasn't the case last year. So obviously there's no way around it. Monty did not believe in Ivey, and it was amazing to me how well Ivey played when he knew in his heart that the coach didn't believe in him. So that's going to make a difference in and of itself. He said there's plenty of different ways to use those 2 guys, and he wants to see us push the ball ahead. And I wanted to see this last year. Either the outlet goes to Ivey, or we make an outlet pass, and then the next pass goes to Ivey shooting up the floor. Because it's over for the other team. If Ivey gets the ball in transition, even if the other team has players back, their defense is not set, nobody can stop Ivey from getting to the rim. It was weird to me last year that Ivey shot the 3 really quite well at the first part of the year, even when he wasn't playing as much. And then there was a stretch where even when they played way off him, he just forced the drive. He just drove it right down people's throats every time he touched it. And then later in the year, he just started shooting a lot more 3s. I will say this about Ivey is that he said that he's going to sit down with him. He's looking forward to working with him. JB did, and he's going to sit down one-on-one, and they're going to figure out what he wants, what his goals are. He's going to try to understand who he is and how to, make it work together. And to have a plan going into it. But I've said this repeatedly too, that Ivey, if you pay close attention, he has this enormous heart. Ivey is just, and if you listen to his interviews, his heart is so big to a fault. I think it does hurt him at times, and I think it hurt him at the end of last year. He's quite emotional, even though he tries to keep, he hid his emotions from how he felt about getting jerked around and having Killian Hayes play over him. He just kept on playing, kept his mouth shut, put his head down. But everybody talked about since he's been with us, how he's the hardest worker. They have to, when he goes to opposing arenas, they kick him out of the arena. He's the first one into practice. Everybody talks about what a great worker Asar is, and I don't deny it that he is. But everybody said Ivey's the hardest worker. And again, I think the thing is he, until the last month and a half of last year, I thought Ivey would be halfway decent. Here's what you guys got to know. Ivey's inconsistent. Well, yes, he was. But guess who else was inconsistent? So this past year, Therese Halliburton, the first 2 months of the season, I guess, somewhere around there, everybody's talking about All-NBA, first team, that he was one of the best 5 players in the league, and that he's all MVP consideration. He was tearing it up. And then he got a hamstring injury, and then he went down the toilet, and his shooting went from like 40-some% to like 20-some%. And he did, but players have ups and downs. Injuries are a factor and everything like that. But he had an inconsistent year. Jalen Green, everybody's questioning. He's, up for his rookie extension, and they don't know what to do. So he was, even at the beginning of last year, Emi Udoka had him in and out of the lineup. He would start, and there were a lot of games he didn't finish. Then Şengün got hurt, and then Green just tore it up. He dominated. They won like 11 in a row, and Green just shot the lights out and just was unbelievable. But he had that stretch for about a month. So I'm saying he was somewhat inconsistent. I know Banchero had a month where he went for 11 on threes. I know Anthony Edwards missed 19 threes in a row last year at one stretch. And so I just said, you say he's inconsistent. He still shot 34% despite, and I can't get over, I can, justify some of it, but the end of the year did really cause me to pause how bad he was the last part of the year. I just got in his head and he just could not get out of it. So I think Fred Vincent can help him. I think having a coach that believes in him can help him. So we will see what happens. But big thing is, Piston fans are not optimistic this year. Last year there was so much optimism and excitement going into the year, and that was so much. And then we were bad, so it just we crashed and burned. And so now this year everybody's snake bit, so they're not so excited. But we don't know what's going to happen. We got these new players, Beasley and Hardaway and Tobias. They all played. They started and played a lot of games and were significant players on playoff teams last year. At the same time, nobody wanted them. We had to give up stuff to take on Hardaway's contract. Dallas had to, and so that's how bad he was. And Beasley, $60 million, that's nothing. He started 77 out of 79 games for them last year. And Tobias, we overpaid for him, but he's still a really good player. I think he's going to make a big impact in and out of the locker room, on the court. He just has such a great demeanor. But I just want to really quickly tell you, probably most people have stopped listening, so I can say this now. This past year, I went through a divorce, and I had to sell my house. I love my dream house I designed and built, and then I have stenosis in my neck. I have some degenerative disc in my neck, and so November 18th, I'm going to Cleveland Clinic, and they're going to take out a couple of discs and slide in some plates and try to get. So I have my arms and my hands are numb, and my legs are numb. So it's not the greatest feeling in the world to have your arms and legs numb, but hopefully that surgery is going to help. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't help so much. But those of you that pray, have me in your prayers. I would appreciate that. But I'm going to be back on as much as I can. Again, I will be back on Monday after Media Day, and I'm excited for the season. I think we're going to be a surprise, and hopefully you're going to have a good time, but be the reason that somebody feels cared for and loved, and go Pistons.